energy. So since then, today, I'm kind of like blooming with energy, knowing that I was able to just pick on that. But first, I want to thank you again for joining this. I really appreciate this group because this group is the perfect platform to talk about some of our favorite subjects to me slash personal experience, which is, the outer body experiences and near death experiences. So I have a question for you before we speak about your book. Um,
Okay, fire away.
what is the most fascinating story you've ever heard or encountered when it comes to near-death experience?
Well, I would have to say, really, that if I think about the near-death experiences in the book that I wrote about, they're all fascinating because they all have their own individual subjects of near death, of how it happened. So they're all unique in their own ways. Um, I know that yours was an NDE slash OBE. You weren't quite sure what it was when we spoke about it, and I interviewed you for the book, and then I invited you on the Tracie Austin show about a month ago or so. We spoke about it, um, but I have to say, Moshe, that I don't really have any one particular near-death experience story that I prefer over another because they've got their own unique experience.
I tell you why I'm asking that because recently, any more since I'm doing this lives, I've encountered many people that talk to me about their stories and want me to do readings. And I know that you know because you've been following my story. Obviously, you wrote that wonderful book, and I was honored to have a chapter. And you actually convinced me that what I had was more of an outer body experience as opposed to a near death because I also learned that once you get to an NDE, you do see the light. And I
That's right.
believe that I know the source of that light. We literally just see the light that comes from ourselves, from our own soul, or the people that come in to escort us to where we need to go. Because once we see the internal light, the light that we are going to be part of forever, that is already in the end of that journey. But there is still a journey the soul has to go. And the big light that we see when we close to dying, I believe that it's the light that you are able to see once you're outside that physical body. So I think that outer body experience is not quite there, but it's kind of like in between dimension that you're like
Yes.
almost crossing over, but not quite. Like you're halfway there, but not really.
Yeah, I think the way you termed it in when I interviewed you and what I wrote in the book was that you were sort of like at a crossroads.
Yeah, it was a waiting room. It was literally just like I was in a waiting room about to go to the other side, and in the waiting room it was decided that I don't belong there, and therefore I came back. And the
Right.
reason I'm saying that is because like my body was not touched, so something just happened, like I was in this accident, but yet I'm coming out of there like I just took a shower.
Right.
Like, and it's so kind of weird. And then, but yet I see the visions, and my life is changing, and my perspective is changing, and all of a sudden I'm gaining mediumship abilities. Like I read people, so all of a sudden I was like, well, I was there for what? To gain that, maybe? And a lot of people now see me as quote unquote crazy because I talk about, and I don't blame them. I probably would call myself that before I was obtain those abilities, but I'm fascinated by it. I'm more and
Well,
more convinced that there's no death. Like, so I'm really an advocate of it. I just tell people, hey, what do you got to lose? It's 50-50, you know? If I'm right, if I'm
it,
right, you're moving on. If I'm wrong, we both are just not moving on. So what's wrong with believing that? So
that's right. When I wrote the book, through everyone that I've interviewed, and there's a number of people in the book, this was the first cover of the book. But I've since changed this cover a little bit, and it has become this.
oh
Okay.
wow, I didn't even know that.
Yes,
That
I
is
changed
beautiful.
because I was with a publisher when I initially did this, and I decided to republish my book without the publisher. So I wanted to change somewhat of what this, cover looked like. I kept the figure here, but this is what it now looks like.
I think it's more fitting, to be honest.
Well, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
if
And
any of your viewers do want to read I Survived Beyond and Back, which you can find on Amazon, it's got your story in it, chapter 9, I believe it is. If you read it and you want to leave a review, you'll find that you'll have to leave a review where it's showing this particular cover that is out of print. Okay, so I wouldn't want your viewers to get confused. So when you go to Amazon, and if you wanted to purchase the book and you read it and you want to leave a review.
see, Robert said, Tracie, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but Robert said here that the words in your book are coming up reversed. Maybe there's a way, yeah, because of the video, maybe there's a way for you. I don't know how you're going to do it without flipping the whole thing, but maybe you want to read it. Could you maybe read it to tell us what it says? Because it does show like it's reversed, like a mirror effect.
It says, I survived beyond and back, compelling accounts of near-death experiences from those who have glimpsed the afterlife. At the bottom, it's got my name, Tracie Austin, and then it says, forward by Joyce Hawkes, PhD, who is a near-death experiencer herself. So in the forward of this book, Joyce writes about her own phenomenal.
So there's a scientific figure involved to almost back up like and share her own story. So this is beautiful. What made you, if I may ask, what made you write this book? What drove you to one day wake up in the morning and say, I know that you are into this business, and not only when I said business, I mean into this field. And you cover many of the paranormal, not necessarily matters of life and death. But what made you, if I may ask, wake up one morning deciding today I'm going to write about near-death experience stories?
Well, it took actually a while for me to realize what I was actually going to write about. I've written 2 books prior, and as you correctly said, I had a TV show that was called Let's Talk Paranormal back in California some years ago. And so we covered in our show all aspects of the paranormal. So one of those books was called Welcome to Haunted Las Vegas, Nevada. And the second book was Alien Encounters in the Western United States. So when this book came along, I Survived Beyond and Back, it really didn't set out to talk about near-death experiences at first, Moshe. I got the idea that I wanted to write about strange experiences that people had experienced inside a morgue.
Wow.
And it sounds very...
That's pretty intense.
Yes, very macabre. And I spoke with a few people out here at local morgues, but I couldn't really get to the point of talking to them about experiences. It was as if it was a no-no. They didn't want to discuss those kind of things. So because it intrigued me if people had had strange experiences at a funeral home or inside a morgue. So it never ended up actually being that. So I thought, well, okay, well, we'll take it a step further then. Let's talk about near death and what happens in near death events. So as I was about to kind of embark on that, I lost my father in 2017, November of 2017. So it was really losing my father that spurred me on to talk about near death. Not that my father had a near death experience. He didn't. He made the full transition. But in the back of this book,
was he trying to communicate you? I'm trying to kind of guess. Was he trying to communicate with you?
Yes, I have communication all the time.
Why am I feeling that?
Because you have, my friend, had a glimpse of the afterlife, and this is what happens. This is what I write about in this
He's talking
book.
to you in your house, isn't he? Like, is it something in your home that Where are you talking to him?
I talked to him in the guest bedroom because what my dad does is he actually switches the
Wow, I
ceiling.
just read you live. I'm sorry, I just read your father. Like, I just felt
That's
it. Wow.
wow. Yes.
Wow. Well, go ahead and continue with your story. I really apologize. It was a
No,
tangent
I'm
that was necessary.
thrilled that you mentioned that. Yes, because I was going to mention it. And in chapter 14, in the back of the book, I write a chapter about the communication with my dad. And I call it Surviving Beyond because that is what my dad is doing. He is surviving beyond.
Wow.
So, uh, so where do I begin with this? Because I lost my father. I moved house here. Um, Nothing happened for about 5 months with my father. And then it started to happen. And I was in the guest bedroom reading a book, actually. This is what triggered it all. Reading a book that a doctor had written about what happens 3 to 5 days before passing. And he is a director of 2 care hospices in Texas, in Houston, Texas. And his name is Dr. John Lermer. And I have to, I speak about this book in my book, and I totally recommend, I highly recommend this book to your viewers. And it's simply called Into the Light. And his name is Dr. John Lermer. And again, he speaks about what happens 3 to 5 days before his hospice patients pass. They see deceased loved ones, they see angels. And so I had moved into this beautiful house in December of 2017. I just lost my father a month earlier. And because the house is bigger, we bought more furniture, and we bought this beautiful big bookcase. And so, and I had to do that because, Moshe, when I had my TV show in California, I had a lot of publishers send me books that belonged to authors so that I could interview them on the show. And so I pull up all my books in a big container from the garage, and I'm setting the books on the shelf. And I come across the book Into the Light by Dr. John Lermer, and I thought, why have I never read this? So I flipped open the pages, looked inside. I'd still got the letter from the publisher in there, dated 2007. So it was now 10 years later, 2017. So I thought, wow, what a fascinating book, and I've never read it. So I started to read it. So one night I went into my guest bedroom and I started to read the book. And I read a chapter about an elderly lady named Mildred who had stomach cancer. And she was not coming out of this hospice alive. And she knew this. And so I'm into my book, into the chapter, and I'm reading it. And I get to a part where Dr. Lermer says he stopped by Mildred's room in the care hospice one morning. And she asked him a question. And she said, Dr. Lermer, I have to ask you a question. And he said, okay, Mildred, what is your question? And she said, well, why am I seeing deceased loved ones in my room? And he goes on in the book to say that he did not want to frighten her and speed up the process of her death. So he said to her, well, you know what, Mildred, maybe they are popping by to see you, just like I do every morning, to check on you. Maybe that's what they're doing. And it's quite okay. So she said, well, okay, well, let me ask you another question. Why am I seeing angels in my room? So he says, okay, well, you've kind of got my attention, so describe these angels. So she's talking in the book, she's describing them. They always stand in a particular corner of her room in the hospice. They reach the height of the ceiling, which I imagine in a care hospice can really be no taller than 9 feet, 10 feet maximum, I think. And she says they are a certain width with their body, and they illuminate all this beautiful, brilliant white light. And it's a little bit
That's
like,
what we are too, by the way. Inside this physical body, if we could
right,
to see it, we are too.
exactly. She referred to it being like a light bulb, that it was all internal and it came outwards. So she said, they said to her in her mind, Mildred, we cannot communicate with you unless you initiate it. You have to do that first for us to talk to you. We cannot openly do that. So Mildred initiates the communication and it happens. They start talking to her. Well, Moshe, when I read that, I sat back on my chair and I said, oh my God, I would love for my angels to talk to me. I would love to talk to my angels. Boom, the light went out. So I sat in darkness for a moment and I thought, what have I done? What did I just do? So I sat for a moment wondering what was going to happen next. Nothing did happen. And so I leaned forward, I looked at the clock on the bedside table, it said 10 p.m. So I thought, it's getting quite late, so I'll just put the book away and I'll continue to read it tomorrow. Well, I kid you not, I get up off the chair, I walked halfway past the bed, boom, the light came back on. And I thought, somebody wants to talk to me, and I don't know who it is. So I scooted right up to the bed and I said, looking up at the light, I said, I don't know whether it's you, my angels, that want to talk to me, or if it's you, Dad. I said, but I have to thank you, whoever you are, for communicating to me, because I know that takes a heck of a lot of energy to do that. And thank you so, so much. And please feel free to visit me again whenever you feel you can or want to. And I was with the light for a moment, and I turned around, I switched the light off, I closed the door, and I went to bed. Well, I didn't tell my partner for a good few days of what had happened, Moshe, because he was quite skeptical. He's a businessman, he's very business minded. Things are either black and white, there's no in between, there's no gray area. But what I did do was I had emailed a couple of friends of mine who are spiritualist mediums in the UK. And I told them what had happened. And they both said the same thing to me. Tracie, this is not the work of angels communicating with you, because angels do not need to flip lights on and off. They're in a higher dimension. This is your dad communicating with you. So I was shocked. I was shocked, relieved, baffled, all of the above. I had so many emotions that ran through me, because when my dad was on the earth plane, and he lived in England with my mom and my sister, I used to have conversations on Skype so that I could see them like we are. And I used to say to them, now, I know you don't want to talk about this, but whoever crosses over first, will you please, please let me know that you're okay, that you made it, and that you're okay. And life continues, because I always knew it did.
It's wonderful.
Yes, but my parents, especially my dad, was a big, big skeptic. And he thought, well, when you die, you die. That's it. Nothing. Blackness, darkness, nothing. You don't survive. You don't. Well, he obviously learned exactly what I told him. Yes, you do survive.
It was important for him to show you that you were right.
That's
And I'll
correct.
tell you something. You mentioned what happened prior to you having all these lights going off and on and getting all these signs. You were reading a book about somebody who was in a hospital and talking and seeing angels, meaning you open yourself up to that portal of communication. Because just like you said with angels, like you have to tell them, those angels told that lady, you have to talk to us first so we can talk to you. Because angels, unlike us souls, angels were created eventually to serve us, to guide us, and for us to be their masters and not the other way around. So
That's
when
right.
we give, and by the way, I'm talking to you now, there's like wind gusts out of nowhere as we speaking. Like it's great. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but it's kind of weird. So those angels, they wanted somebody, they wanted that lady to talk to them so she can open up the portal, almost like because we had my previous live was about guardian angels, and I was explaining the how we're supposed to meet him halfway in order to start a communication. Same with the deceased. Your dad needed you to open up spiritually and to get that little wow effect you had from that book. And
That's right.
once you did that, your soul opened up. And once you open up that portal, it's like it's a dual-sided thing, because I keep saying that when we pray for our loved ones who we lost, they pray for us back. We depend on one another. There's like a little dimension that it's almost like an invisible, think about an umbilical cord
Right.
that each feed, once somebody's gone, we feed off the memories, we get strength of our loved ones getting strength from us, and vice versa. So it's very important that they make us feel happy knowing inside that they're okay, and that we make them feel happy, letting them know that we are okay, and they give us sometimes signs that, hey, it's not the end. And once we have faith and we know for a fact that it's not the end, we are able to maintain or at least establish a better communication.
Right. And I always knew, Moshe, there was no end. Everything continues. It was just that I never suspected that my dad would try to make an effort to communicate because of his belief system. He didn't believe in it, even though I asked. You know, whoever crosses first, whether it's you or mum, I don't know who. I mean, my dad is 12 years older than my mum, so it was kind of evident. You know, my dad was 80, 82 when he crossed. Um, so it was kind of evident, really, that my dad would probably pass before my mum because he was 12 years older. But I never suspected he would try and communicate with me, even though I knew life continued on the other side. So that is how it all started, and it's continued. And if he continues to do it up to next month, April, he's done it 3 years non-stop. Every single month, I have had visitations. I got one on Tuesday night.
So he's been communicating with you nonstop for the past, you said,
3
3 years.
years, every single month. Sometimes it could be once a month. Sometimes it's been six.
Well, have you wondered if there is something that he's trying to tell you that you need to be doing that you have yet to do, that he's wanting you to do?
Well, my spiritual medium friends, one in particular does a Facebook Live every Wednesday, and she tries to give her group members, which is now 422 group members, I think it is, mini readings. She tries to read for everybody in her group, which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I've had lots of messages from my father, from her, not specifically of what my father wants me to do, but things like, your dad comes to watch you about, what's this about 5 a.m. in the morning? I said, I don't know. She says, your father stands and watches you sleep at 5 a.m. in the morning. Or she'll say things like, he's trying to push you forward, move you forward, forget about things that have caused you pain in the past, whether it's to do with, you know, relationships or whatever.
You know, Can I know it's kind of off record, but I am having reading at the moment, and I'm going to say something that might sound even to you as kind of like weird about that, or first time, because of the situation that you're describing of the constant visits and the 5 a.m. and watching and what the other medium told you, which is that your father is watching over you. Um, I was wondering if your father hasn't completely crossed over. And and sometimes people who are skeptic in their life, because what who are we as far as our nature and character? It's not that our body, our flesh and bones are the ones deciding for us our principles. It's all a matter of the soul. If we are skeptic, meaning our soul is skeptic. If we're in love, if we are sad, if we are uplifted, it's really our soul that it is. Same with skepticism. Usually when people pass, yes, all their money, all their wealth, all their clothing, all their beauty, all that physical materialistic stuff does not come with them.
That's right.
However, their characteristics does cross over with them. And when people are skeptic in their lives, sometimes they are skeptic in their death, even though they see around them that it's not what they thought, and death is actually the beginning of life. The skepticism is still there, and they are almost in a way timid to cross over to their new destination, and they want to stay with their loved ones because they're wanting, like you said, to watch over you. However, every one of us soul needs to be in its close to its origin, which is that eternal light, and everybody must cross over. So maybe I think that personally, when your dad is there with you and for you, you maybe need to have a moment with him where you can actually tell him that you're okay and have his soul rest in peace. I mean, that's what we want for everybody, because we don't want him to stay. This is our realm, and for a soul without a body, it's more of a frustrating experience to be there constantly than to be in where the soul is treated and actually its natural environment, which is not here. We have a body here because it's not our natural environment. But that's just on a side note, and it's a beautiful story. And now tell us one more thing about the book before I want to ask you a question from your personal or professional experience. Where can people get your book? Tell us the name of the book again. By the way, I'm featured in that book. And yes, we are doing promotion because this is a beautiful subject. And if somebody's taking the time and the inspiration to write and to get with people's stories and to tell them, that's not only a book that is educational or fun to read, but it's also a book of inspiration and hope. I read the book because I'm in it also, and I think that it's going to give a lot of you hope for the future and some security to know that your loved ones are not lost, but actually are found. So, Miss Tracie, if you don't mind telling us more information on how to get the book.
Sure. If you go to Amazon.com, you'll be able to see the brand new cover, which is this. You will also see the previous cover, which is this one. This is no longer in print. It's no longer in print because this has now superseded that.
And read us the titles because we cannot, due to the letters showing reverse.
Yeah, but it's called I Survived Beyond and Back. But if your viewers want to write a review once they've read the book, and hopefully it's a positive review, then you need to go to one that's out of print because that's where people were leaving the reviews. So, but
and can people still get a digital version of that book?
Yeah, they can. They can get this paperback and they can get it on Kindle at Amazon.com. And I think you can also get it in your bookstores, Barnes and Noble. If you ask, if it's not in there, then you can ask for them to order it for you. But
yeah,
Amazon,
there's some beautiful stories there.
there are. They're all
I was honored to be in a live session with some of the people that were featured in the book, and I loved hearing their stories. Some of them are beautiful, but we all had the same agreement about what it's all about, and what does the soul really learn from such experience. And again, now to the main thing that I started this podcast and wanted to have your opinion. What do you think about reincarnation? Because I've been studying that. Maybe maybe it's a good idea for the next book. Reincarnation. It is fascinating to a point of I was just first. I know personally. I know that it exists.
Yeah.
There are some scientific researches they've been going on for ages, and they all are in alignment that either they can explain it or that they do exist. A very famous story that actually is on YouTube as well from my home country of Israel, talking about this little boy from that village, and he's a little Druze or Arab boy, and that boy, his parents called the doctors because that boy started speaking English at age of 3 or 4, and nobody ever taught him English in the family.
Oh.
He's been speaking fluent English with an English accent, and his parents don't even speak English, and his parents been with him all of his life, and they don't really know where it's coming from. And investigators coming over to the house, and they're doing a lot of testing on this kid, and they know that there's no way in the world that kid will learn the vocabulary and have that. And then that boy also names himself a name of somebody who lived somewhere in England, and he's just and it's almost like you look at that and be like, there's no way that thing can be fake. Like there's no, I mean, I watched that little boy speaking English. I watched his parents sitting there saying like, we didn't know what to do at first. We thought that somebody taught him. And all of a sudden his vocabulary just got more and more. And then he's been telling stories about his past lives. And the list goes on. There's many, many stories of people. To me, when people use the term, which is a French term, déjà vu, meaning
Yes.
pretty much I was here, which is describing a situation that in this consciousness, in this physical world, you're almost 100% aware that you're not here. However, in the metaphysical world, in the self-consciousness, you know that you're probably way here, probably in a different body or in a different lifetime or as somebody else or in a different reality, which is fascinating. And science still cannot explain that deja vu phenomena. There's millions of things when it comes to reincarnations, and I do believe that reincarnation exists. The reasoning for that is really unknown. Many religions and faiths believes in different type of stuff, punishment, this and that. I tend to not know because I've never been reincarnated. So I don't know why people are getting reincarnated. I just know that some do, and I just know that some have a lot of the signs. And I think that if people can be born and die, and we are souls and energy and lights, and we come from somewhere and go back to that somewhere, I don't see any reason why we can do our duty twice for whatever reason in a different body. Maybe it just has to do with ascension of the soul. I think that these things are very, very complicated, metaphysical, and complex, but I think it'll be a good subject to work on.
It's something that I have thought about doing, to be honest, and I do believe in reincarnation, and I'm not sure if it's actually a choice to reincarnate.
Oh, it's not at all. It's not at all.
It is a choice.
I don't think it's a choice.
I don't think it's a choice.
I don't think we have a choice to when to be born, unless we commit suicide, which is unfortunate. When to die, we don't have a choice. Usually, people don't put in the calendar, "Hey, in age 74, I'm going to get diabetes type it and to die." We don't know that. We really expect to live forever. Deep inside, we think and hope that our day will never come, even though it will come. But we don't know when and how. And some people die in tragic, unexpected, like accidents and stuff. But when to be born is also out of our choice, and what family to be born to, what country to be born to, what time of day, what month of year, out of our control completely. So I think that reincarnation is something that is out of our control. However, some people do have the memory, and then you'll have a soul that is remembering its past life, and it's mixed with the current life. And this is where this phenomena is really coming into expression in stories.
Yeah. Well, back in January, a new near-death experience and reincarnation documentary came on Netflix, and probably you and maybe your viewers have seen it. It's called Surviving Death. And it was by Leslie Kean, who had put everything together. She's a journalist. And fascinating. And kids, like you just said, reliving a life that they had before. One little boy had perished in a plane. He lost his life in a plane, and he would wake up early hours of the morning in his bed, screaming, "Little man down, little man down." Um, he named his plane. He knew where the plane came down. He knew who he was. He was James the Third, and the whole story behind that is so awesome. And then some other boy who is now a teenager also had been a Hollywood actor named Marty Martin, I think his name was Marty Martin. And they actually took him to the relatives, which was a sister of Marty Martin. And he just said everything that went on in the family, right down to private details that no one could have known. And the sister acknowledged it. And it was fascinating. They said, "How do you feel sitting there with this teenager, this boy you've never met, and yet he was, I think it was your actually father." Yeah, it was father, not brother. It was his father. She was a daughter, and she said, I don't know what to make of it. I'm sitting here. He doesn't resemble my father in any way, but he knows everything about my life. Who was born, when they were born.
Exactly. They know details. That's the scary part, which is you can't. And I tell you, if I were to have a take on it, when you already believe in the afterlife, which I do, and when I believe in souls and all that stuff, I cannot not believe in reincarnation. I believe that there's some people who die in crossover and really were skeptical either or did not know what was going on, and then when they see what's out there waiting for them, then they see that really the real life starts after this physical life. They probably sometimes maybe even ask permission, like you asked earlier, to do it all over again and to do it right. It could be people that just have something that they have to correct. And once they correct it, they're just done. Because a lot of people were asking questions like, what do you have to babies Southern death syndrome? Or why do kids have to pass? Kids haven't sinned. Or some kids are young as a year-old just being in a car accident. And you ask yourself, not even to get into a religious debate on that, but just you ask yourself, like, what have these people, these souls have done or accomplished to just die with no reason? Like, especially I can imagine what it's like for their parents who don't even realize how the circle of life just went backwards on them in the most tragic of ways. I only can explain it by those souls came here to fulfill a very short part. It's almost like you're doing a degree and you're just missing a few courses. But yeah, you were ready to graduate age-wise, but you just still needed to complete a few things in order to completely graduate from life. That's the only reason I see for reincarnation. I don't see it as a punishment. I don't want to believe in the energies of punishments. Even though some religions do believe in that, I believe that punishment or reward is something within your own heart and soul and feelings. It's a personal, deep journey. It's not like some demons are going to beat you up. But with reincarnation, I do believe that there's some puzzles pieces that are probably missing in the life before departure, and that had to be resumed, and sometimes maybe they needed to be resumed in a different body or whatnot. So, but it is a mysterious, unless you really talk and sit in people who are claiming to be somebody who, somebody else that who they are, then you can really get a deeper grasp on what this subject is.
Right.
But
It's a fascinating subject. It really is. And it's like, when you look at musicians who come into the world, these little kids that can sit down at a piano, and I know because my background is as a classical concert pianist. I was trained, my background is a musician. So when I've seen like these little kids sit at a piano and they just zip up and down as if, I don't know, and they realize that they're reincarnated from somebody who has gone on before, and they're coming back again,
Yeah.
person as that
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah.
It's fascinating
It
to
is
watch.
fascinating. And then we have a question here really quick from Suzanne. So she says, so I thought when we die, we go to heaven and we are eternity with our families. Yeah, most people, and when you say heaven, like I think that every afterlife, when we pass here, this is heaven. Automatically, you're going to a place when it's light, when it's love, and you will be reunited with your loved ones, assuming your loved ones are already passed. But yes, I think that we're talking about some cases of reincarnation, which the majority of people don't reincarnate. We have one destination. But I think that small percentage, which even smaller is the one that it's exposed to the public, it's possible that there are heaven reincarnations. But also, Tracie, I wanted to ask you, since, why not have a show on Gaia TV? Like take it to the next level. I think that I think personally think that you are be more than a great addition to something like that. Um,
Thank you. I agree. In fact, I mentioned that to my manager a couple of weeks, well, about a week ago. He's just had hip surgery, so I have to wait for him to heal. But I think it's something that we'll probably push forward, because I think this would be great on Gaia TV if we take the Tracie Austin show on Gaia TV.
yeah, I vouch for that. But I really, really want to thank you for joining me this evening for this really fascinating conversation that went all the way from your personal story to the book to reincarnation, and it's always a pleasure. So yeah, one more time, I survived. Okay, if
I
I can read it
survived
from here.
beyond back.
Yeah, I survived beyond and back. Okay, it's got two covers, and in one of them, in the old one, I believe, you're able to leave reviews. That's okay, right? That's right. You're able
Yes,
to leave reviews in this one. Hey
yes.
guys, my story is mentioned there, and it's put together better than any other time that I told my story. And
Really?
that's thanks. Well, yeah. Well, I had an author doing it this time, so I
Well,
really appreciate the way that you told my story.
I'm glad
Uh,
you liked it. I'm
yeah,
glad you
100% on the details, but very, very well put together.
thank
And
you.
I was very honored to spread it and spread hope, because really my main goal to people here in life, after I know what's there, is really not to acquire anything on this physical earth beside telling people, hey, there is hope. Hey, enjoy. Don't be scared. Have no fear. Be a decent, good, positive, happy human being for the best of your ability. So you are going to be a very happy soul when your time comes, and you will have no fear of death. So really, Robert here saying, and he's been active, great discussion, Tracie. Your father is one of the lower astral realms, but he will be moving on. All right. So here you got an output here. Very interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
I
Well,
believe so too. By the way, I believe that he's waiting. He's waiting. Maybe something for you has to be told or has to be done for your father to say, hey, I really got it. I wish you the best. I'll meet you. I'll be okay. You need to comfort him maybe in a way, or maybe he's just insisting to stay here and watch over his daughter and protect her. But these things only your soul and his can know. So I
well,
really want to thank you again.
you are very welcome, my friend. Thank you for inviting me on, and for all of your viewers that decided to join us tonight. Thank you. I hope that it's been inspirational and they've learned something. And and like I said, if they do purchase a book, it would be wonderful for them to leave a review, and hopefully it's a
Yes,
positive review too.
yes, definitely. And please do, guys. This book is going to give you hope, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of great stories from other people who've been through this. And one last time, maybe next time you do a show and about some reincarnation, you can invite me over and I can give you my input, because it's always fascinating. People always love to hear about that. It gives them a lot of hope.
Absolutely. Will
All
do.
right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Share this video
Thank
if you
you,
liked
Bosh.
it. Until the next time, have a wonderful night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.